Well, mate, how's it going, man? Thanks for hopping on and doing this.
Thank you, man. Appreciate being
Yeah.
and
Oh man.
my pleasure.
Yeah, I've had a good time good time working together. Well, why don't we just start with who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Cool. So I'm Amit. I'm Ram. Originally from Israel. I moved to Seattle 5 years ago. I'm a record producer, mix engineer, and audio engineer, working with many singer-songwriters and bands locally and around the world.
Love it, man. Awesome. Right off your website, right? The introduction. Nailed it. Awesome, man. Well, hey, what when you came to me, I know you were working, you're a working producer already when you came to me, but what were some of the things that some of the obstacles you were running into, or I guess what prompted you to even want to, you know, um, get help with the business? What was going on back then?
So when I first started working with you, it was just the beginning of the pandemic, and I kind of found myself without a job for like a month or two. I don't remember. And I always had that music production business on the back burner. I've been doing that and focusing too much on my time with like single artists, just doing it not as a business, but as a passion.
Right.
And yeah, at the beginning of the pandemic, I decided I wanted to go all in and just like doing that.
Got it. Okay, that's right. So yeah, did you lose your job, the day job, or did
I
you
did.
just okay,
Yeah.
the pandemic happened and
Hmm.
then you went
Yeah.
all into the production?
Right. I used to work for an AV company that we did events. And when the
Got it.
pandemic hit, no events and we all got fired.
Right. Got it. Got it. Yeah, I think we had some other guys that were in AV, kind of a popular career path for producers because
Yeah.
of the
Yeah. It's
time.
like musicians and technical people always tend to go to the AV world. Yeah.
Right, right. Got it. So that's kind of where you were. That's why you came. You're like, hey, cool. Let me get some just, some hands-on help building this thing out. And then what have things been like since we worked together? What are things like now in the production business?
It's been great. I mean, I feel like the biggest thing for me was the mindset of like how to operate as a business. Yeah, it's my passion. Yeah, I love doing it, but I also need to pay rent
Right.
and we need to have deadlines and I need to find ways to find clients and make it profitable and setting up relationships with people and making sure it's all working like a clock. So that was the biggest thing for me. I feel like.
Now, did you ever go back to the job? Are you still just doing the production? Are you doing production full time? Where are you at now with the business?
Yeah, I'm doing production full time.
Oh, cool.
And
Sick, sick.
yeah,
That's what I thought.
actually,
Yeah.
the pandemic was like the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, for a lot of producers, yeah, it opened their eyes to exploring, and someone like you that like you didn't have any options but to make it happen. Obviously, the pandemic sucks. It's not in the grand scheme of things, kind of a bummer. But yeah, I think for a lot of people, and you were there during that time where you probably remember this during the beginning. Well, not the immediate beginning of the pandemic, but probably June, July of 2020. I think when the government support started hitting, a
Mhm.
lot of y'all's business went up during that. So I think artists had time, because they weren't working, but then they did have money from the financial aid from the government. So it was actually a kind of a good time to get into it. So cool. So you got in, lost your AV job because of the pandemic, went full time, went into the production, still full time now. So yeah, man, nice sprint.
Yeah, it was like
Cool.
a push, just like
Right.
go do. Yeah.
Right. Cool, man. I love that. So obviously there's a lot of options out there, to get help with your business as a producer. Why did you choose us? Why did you come and decide to work with me and the Dark Label people?
Yeah. So I remember I talked to you about a year or two before we started working together. Remember that?
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we talked and I felt like we really hit it off with like the chemistry between us. And I really felt like you've been talking to people like me. It was really personal. And yeah, I just felt like I didn't want some salesy person to just sell me something or some kind of course. Like, you have millions of this on the internet, but I felt like it was very personal and very like you really cared about the people you work with. So that what
Cool.
got me in.
Right on, man. Cool. Yeah, we're pumped to have you. So the last question here is just I always like to do this. Any advice that you would give to now yours was kind of a time sensitive thing, right? Because it happened during the pandemic. Hopefully we don't have another situation like that. But a producer that may have been in your position, where you started at, even if it's not because of a pandemic, but maybe they are working a full-time job and they really want to make the transition to full-time producing, or, they lost their job or something and want to just use that as an opportunity to dive into music. What advice would you give them, and not just go talk to Dan, but like actual advice that you felt maybe helped you?
Wait for the next pandemic to hit. No, I'm just kidding.
Don't curse it, man.
Well, I feel like the best thing to do is, first of all, just take yourself seriously and what you're doing. Understand that what you do worth value for some people, and it has value. It's worth money, and people are willing to pay for it. And just take your whole operation and treat it like a business, like it deserves to be. And slowly you're starting to build it up. And yeah, and if, like, most people think that you need to be a really amazing musician or amazing producer, but it's not always that. You also need to know how to run a business. Like, it's like 50-50. So
right, absolutely, man.
And people like you really help on that end of the spectrum.
Yeah, appreciate that. I always joke and say, I mean, it was kind of true. Like, I wasn't that great of a producer when I started my production company, and it was a full-time business. Ultimately, I had to go hire real producers. But yeah, man, that's totally true. And you said something kind of earlier, I think in the second question, and I was speaking with someone about this on the phone today, about you have to kind of take on a business identity. It doesn't mean like changing yourself in like a weird way, but just like being a better version of yourself. And it sounds kind of woo woo or whatever, right? Sounds intangible, but it's totally a thing. And the kid I was talking to today was like, hey, I have all these great musicians that are friends, but and they're always like, oh, you're so good, you're really good or whatever. But then when it comes to paying me, they won't. It's like, well, they just don't see you as a business person yet. That's not how you put yourself. That's just not the vibe you put out. And
I feel like it's finding the right balance between being friendly and offering value to people, and also being a business and deserves to get money at the same time. So
100%. Yeah, it's a tricky balance, because as you know, people in this industry, they hire their friends. Like 90% of it is the hang, right? They like the person. But then it's like, oh, but are we going to get friend zoned into where, like, I always had this funny saying from, I forgot, maybe some business person I heard a podcast from or a book. I don't know where it came from. But it's like, oh, if you want to get paid less, then become friends with your clients. I get where they're saying. I think that in most businesses, like if you're a therapist, you don't want to be friends with the client. That would ruin the professional relationship. Or even a consultant, sometimes it's like, I love all of y'all, but it doesn't make sense to. I found, like, when I was still living in Nashville and had local clients, a lot of times we would just end up hanging out and like work wouldn't get done. So, but for a producer working with an artist, it's a little different, right? That's one of my lights flashing because it's messed up. With a producer, it's different because you are kind of friends with your clients, right? It's a creative decision or a creative experience you're doing. And but yeah, that's good advice, man.
Yeah, it's very true. I feel like every producer, like, their own thing is their personality with how they work with artists. Some people are more professional, some people are more friendly, and it's just how do you run your business. I feel like that's the main thing.
Yeah, because I've even heard from some artists that, like, they don't want the producer to be all like friendly and like not say what they really mean, and like they're like, hey, I just want somebody that's gonna rock and roll and kill it for us. I don't need to be their buddy, like, so but different strokes for different folks. And yeah, man, well, I'll let you get back to work. It was great. Appreciate you doing this. And it looks like I'm going to be ending my video here in a rave situation. So getting the party started.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
No
Appreciate it.
sweat. All right, we'll see you.